Monday, students and staff of Phelps. It is December 12th. There are 10 days of school left before we break for our holiday vacation. Before we get into our news and our announcements today, would you please stand as we welcome Joey and Omar, who are going to lead us in today's Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Welcome back again. Happy Monday. It is so hard to believe that there are only 10 school days left before we break for the holidays. Let's talk about lunch. Hamburger or cheeseburger on a roll today, lettuce and tomato, sweet potato fries, cucumber coins, and a fresh cup of fruit. You've been working hard to earn your cool coupons. You've been safe, responsible, respectful. School store opens this week. As I shared last week, we have the mini dinosaurs and stamps for you to spend your cool coupons on. Great job. Keep earning. Next week, we'll have our December update. I think, if my memory serves me correctly, we were shooting for 10,000 cool coupons school-wide for the year. Just a reminder, this Friday, Ugly Sweater Day, doesn't cost anything to participate. We want to see how ugly of a sweater you can put on for Friday. Also Friday night, it's our PTO Cocoa and Caroling event outside here from 6 to 7. Come get some hot chocolate. We have some winter activities. We're going to decorate a tree and sing some songs. Join us 6 to 7. It's going to be fun. Also Friday, some more and exciting things happening at Phelps that it's top secret. But I'm just saying you don't want to miss school on Friday because there are so many surprises for you. School-wide, we have a huge treat in store. That's all I'm saying. Thank you so much for all of you who donated to the sock hop. Now, I don't have the total yet. Mrs. T is still counting how many socks were donated. But we had a table filled with socks, bags beyond the table. The amount of socks that we're able to donate to the local shelter is amazing. I am so proud of all of you for dressing up, for bringing in your donations, for coming down, getting out of your comfort zone, twisting the afternoon away. Great time. I look forward to that event next year already. That's all we have for our announcements today, but we love celebrating birthdays, so let's do it. We love celebrating our birthdays at Phelps, and we have 5 birthdays that we're celebrating this week. So here we go. Happy birthday in 4th grade to Keaton. In the 3rd grade, happy birthday wishes to both Landon and Addison. Happy birthday. In our kindergarten, happy birthday, Charlie. And in 1st grade, happy birthday to Brayden. I hope you have an amazing day.
Good morning, boys and girls. I'm going to read to you a story called Enemy Pie. Enemy Pie. It should have been a perfect summer. My dad helped me build a treehouse in our backyard. My sister was at camp for 3 whole weeks, and I was on the best baseball team in town. It should have been a perfect summer, but it wasn't. It was all good till Jeremy Ross moved to the neighborhood, right next door to my best friend Stanley. I did not like Jeremy Ross. He laughed at me when he struck me out in the baseball game. He had a party on his trampoline, and I wasn't even invited. But my best friend Stanley was. Jeremy Ross was the one and only person on my enemy list. I never had an enemy list before he moved into our neighborhood. But as soon as he came along, I needed one. I hung it up in my treehouse where Jeremy Ross was not allowed to go. Dad understood things like enemies. He told me that when he was my age, he had enemies too, but he knew one way to get rid of them. I asked him to tell me how. Tell you? Tell you how? I'll show you how, he said. He pulled a really old recipe book off the kitchen shelf. Inside, there was a worn out scrap of paper with faded writing. Dad held it up and squinted at it. Enemy pie, he said, satisfied. You may be wondering what exactly is an enemy pie. I was wondering too. But Dad said the recipe was so secret, he couldn't tell me. I decided it must be magic. I begged him to tell me something, anything. I will tell you this, he said. Enemy pie is the fastest way known to get rid of enemies. Now, of course, this got my mind working. What kind of things, disgusting things, would I put into an enemy pie? A pie for my enemy. I brought Dad some weeds from the garden, but he just shook his head. I bought him earthworms and rocks. He didn't think that he needed those. I gave him the gum that I had been chewing all morning. He gave it right back to me. I went out to play alone. I shot baskets until the ball got stuck on the roof. I threw a boomerang that never came back to me. And all the while, I listened to the sound of my dad chopping and stirring and blending the ingredients to the enemy pie. This could be a great summer after all. Enemy pie was going to be awful. I tried to imagine how horrible it must smell, or worse yet, what it would look like. But when I was in the backyard looking for ladybugs, I smelled I smelled something really, really, really good. As far as I could tell, it was coming from the kitchen. It was I was a bit confused. I went in and asked Dad what was wrong. Enemy pie shouldn't smell good. But Dad was smart. If enemy pie smelled bad, your enemy would never eat it, he said. I could tell he'd made an enemy pie before. The buzzer rang, and Dad put on his oven mitts and pulled the pie out of the oven. It looked like plain old pie. It looked good enough to eat. I was catching on. But still, I wasn't sure how the enemy pie worked. What exactly did it do to my enemies? Maybe it would make their hair fall out or their breath stinky. Maybe it made bullies cry. I asked Dad, but he was no help. He wouldn't tell me a thing. But while the pie cooled, he filled me in on my job. He talked quietly. There was one part of enemy pie I can't tell I can't do. In order for it to work, you need to spend a day with your enemy. Even worse, you have to be nice to him. It's not easy, but that's the only way enemy pie can work. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Of course I was. It sounded horrible. It was scary, but it was worth a try. All I had to do was spend one day with Jeremy Ross, and then he'd be out of my hair for the rest of my life. I rode my bike to his house and knocked on the door. When Jeremy opened the door, he seemed surprised. He stood on the other side of the screen door and looked at me. While waiting for me to say something, I was a bit nervous. Can you play? I asked. He looked confused. I'll go ask my mom, he said. He came back with his shoes in his hand. My mom walked around the corner to say hello. You boys stay out of trouble, she said, smiling. It was strange, but I was kind of having fun with my enemy. He almost seemed nice. But of course, I couldn't tell Dad that, since he had worked so hard on this enemy pie. Jeremy, Jeremy Ross liked my basketball hoop. He said he wished he had a basketball hoop, but they didn't have room for one. I let him win a game, just to be nice. Jeremy Ross knew how to throw a boomerang. He threw it, and it came right back to him. I threw it, and it went over the house and into the backyard. When we climbed over the fence to find the first boomerang thing, Jeremy noticed it was in my treehouse. My treehouse was my treehouse. I was the boss of my treehouse. If my sister wanted in, I didn't have to let her. If my dad wanted in, I didn't have to let him either. And if Jeremy went in, can we go in it? He asked. I knew he was going to ask me that. But he was the top person, the only person on my enemy list. And the enemies aren't allowed in the treehouse. But he did teach me to throw a boomerang. And he did have me over for lunch. And he did let me play on his trampoline. He was being a very, very nice enemy. Okay, I said, but hold on. I climbed up ahead of him and tore the enemy list off the wall. I had a checkered board and some cards in the treehouse. We played games until my dad called us down for dinner. We pretended we didn't hear him, and then he came out to get us. He tried to hide from him, and somehow he found us. Dad made us macaroni and cheese for dinner. My favorite. It was Jeremy's favorite too. Maybe Jeremy Ross was not so bad after all. He was beginning to think that maybe we should just forget about the enemy pie. But sure enough, after dinner, Dad brought out the pie. I watched as he cut the pie into 8 thick slices. Dad, I said, it sure is nice having a new friend in the neighborhood. I was trying to get his attention and trying to tell him that Jeremy Ross was no longer my enemy. But Dad only smiled and nodded. I think he thought I was just pretending. Dad dished up 3 plates side by side with big pieces of pie and a giant scoop of ice cream. He passed one to me and one to Jeremy. Wow, Jeremy said, looking at the pie. My dad never makes pies like this. It was at that point that I panicked. I didn't know what. I didn't want Jeremy to eat the enemy pie. He was my friend. I couldn't let him eat it. Jeremy, don't eat it. It's bad pie. I think it's poisonous or something. Jeremy's fork stopped before he reached his mouth. He crumpled his eyebrows and looked at me funny. He felt relieved. I had saved his life. I was his hero. If it's so bad, Jeremy asked, then why has your dad already eaten half of it? I turned to look at my dad. Sure enough, he was eating enemy pie. Good stuff, he mumbled through his mouthful. And that was all he said. I sat there watching them eat pie for a few seconds. Dad was laughing, Jeremy happily eating, and neither of them were losing their hair. It seemed safe enough, so I took a tiny taste. Enemy pie was delicious. After dessert, Jeremy rode his bike home, but not before inviting me over to play on his trampoline in the morning. He said that he'd teach me how to flip. As for enemy pie, I still don't know how to make it. I still wonder if enemies really do hate it, or if their hair falls out, or if their breath turns bad. But I don't know if I'll ever get the answer because I just lost my best enemy. That was the end. Boys and girls, this story is a message telling us that let's get a chance to know someone before we decide we don't like them. So make sure that you get to know your friends. Have a great day. Be safe and responsible. Have a respectful day.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rocher, for sharing that story with us, and it has such great messages for us. Really, boys and girls, what it comes down to is just being kind, modeling our core values when you're meeting new friends and working with friends you have, and even problem-solving conflict with the friends that you have already. Just be responsible, be respectful, be safe, not only with your body, but with your words. What great messaging. That is all for our Monday morning broadcast today. This is Mr. V saying goodbye for now, and remember that kindness counts, so do small things with great love. Have a safe, responsible, and respectful week, and I'll see you around Phelps.